She was 27 years old, successful by every measure that matters, and she hadn't left her apartment in 11 days, not because she didn't want to, because her body wouldn't let her. Every time she reached for the door handle, her heart would slam against her ribs, her vision would narrow, and a voice in her head would whisper that something terrible was waiting on the other side. Maybe you know that voice. Maybe you're hearing it right now. Here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. That voice is lying to you. And today, you're going to learn exactly how to prove it wrong. What I'm about to share with you isn't motivational fluff. These are 10 techniques drawn from neuroscience, clinical psychology, and cognitive behavioral research that have pulled people back from the edge of breakdown. Some of them will feel uncomfortable. One of them might even make you angry, but every single one of them works. And the 10th one? It's the technique that a trauma therapist told me changed more lives in her practice than anything else she'd learned in 20 years. It takes 90 seconds. Don't skip ahead. You need to hear these in order. Way number 1. Anchor yourself before you drown. When anxiety floods your system, your brain does something cruel. It rips you out of the present moment and throws you into a future that doesn't exist yet. A future where everything goes wrong, where you fail, where people leave, where disaster is certain. You can't fight that with logic. Anxiety doesn't speak logic. You have to trick your brain back into the present moment using the only language it can't argue with. Your senses. This is called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, and it's embarrassingly simple. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. I know it sounds too basic to work. That's what Marcus thought, a 43-year-old engineer who'd tried meditation apps, breathing exercises, and 2 different medications. He called this technique ridiculous the first time his therapist suggested it. Then he tried it during a panic attack in a crowded airport. 60 seconds later, his hands stopped shaking. Your senses are anchors. Use them. But here's what most people get wrong about grounding, and it's connected to the next technique in a way that might surprise you. Way number 2, stop treating anxiety like the enemy. This is where I might lose some of you. Stay with me anyway. What if I told you that fighting your anxiety is actually making it worse? What if the war you've been waging against your own nervous system is the very thing keeping you trapped? A Harvard study found something fascinating. When people were told to reframe their anxiety as excitement, not only did they feel better, they actually performed better. Public speakers gave more compelling speeches. Test takers scored higher. Athletes executed more precisely. Both emotions, anxiety and excitement, produce identical physical sensations: racing heart, sweaty palms, heightened alertness. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what those sensations mean. Your brain evolved anxiety to keep you alive. It's not malfunctioning, it's just miscalibrated for modern life. The same alarm system that saved your ancestors from predators now activates when you see an email from your boss. So stop treating it like an invader. Start treating it like an overzealous security guard who needs better instructions. The next time your heart starts pounding, say this out loud. My body is preparing me for something important, because it is. Now, the next technique is physical, and I'll be honest with you, it's the one I resisted longest. Way number 3, the 90-second nervous system. Reset, a Stanford neuroscientist named Andrew Huberman, discovered that your body already knows how to shut down anxiety instantly. You just haven't been letting it. Watch someone who's been crying begin to calm down. They do something involuntary. A double inhale, 2 quick breaths in through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale. So it's called the physiological sigh, and it's hardwired into your biology. Here's how to use it deliberately. Breathe in through your nose. Before you exhale, sneak in a second, shorter inhale on top. Then let everything out slowly through your mouth. That's it. Do it twice. What just happened? The double inhale reinflates tiny air sacs in your lungs that collapse when you're stressed. This triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, the biological off switch for panic. No app required, no quiet room, no 15-minute commitment. You can do this in a meeting, in traffic, in the middle of a conversation where your hands are starting to tremble. But here's the catch. This works in the moment. The next technique works over time, and it might be the strangest thing you try this year. Way number 4. Schedule your suffering. I know how this sounds. Give me a minute. Anxiety's power comes from its unpredictability. It ambushes you. You're cooking dinner, and suddenly you're catastrophizing about money. You're trying to fall asleep, and your brain starts reviewing every mistake you made in 2019. So what if you took control of the schedule? Cognitive behavioral therapists have been prescribing worry time for decades because the research is overwhelming. Pick a 15-minute window each day. 4 o'clock works well for most people. That's your designated worry appointment. When anxious thoughts intrude at other times, you don't suppress them. You postpone them. I'll think about that at 4. And your brain strangely accepts this deal. When 4 o'clock arrives, you sit down with a notebook and you worry on purpose. Write everything down. Catastrophize fully. Then, when the 15 minutes end, you close the notebook. Here's what happens after a few weeks. Most people sit down for their worry appointment and realize they have nothing to say. The next technique requires courage. I won't pretend otherwise. Way number 5. Teach your body that discomfort isn't danger. Cold water. I can already feel some of you leaving. Before you do, hear me out. When cold water touches your face and chest, something called the mammalian dive reflex activates. Your heart rate drops. Your blood vessels constrict. Your body shifts out of fight or flight almost immediately. But that's just the surface benefit. The deeper benefit is this. When you voluntarily step into discomfort and survive it, you build distress tolerance. So you teach your nervous system that unpleasant sensations are not emergencies, that you can feel terrible and still be okay. Start with 30 seconds of cold water at the end of your shower. You'll gasp, you'll hate it, and then you'll notice something remarkable. The anxious chatter in your head goes quiet. Now, what I'm about to tell you is something almost nobody talks about, and it might explain why nothing has worked for you so far. Way number 6. Your anxiety might be chemical. Your body produces stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. When there's a real threat, these chemicals prepare you to fight or run. The problem? In modern life, the threat is an unanswered text message, but your body reacts like it's a tiger. Those chemicals flood your system with nowhere to go, so they just circulate, making you feel jittery, restless, like you want to crawl out of your own skin. Movement metabolizes stress hormones. It literally burns them off. This isn't about getting fit. This is about giving those chemicals somewhere to go. 20 minutes of walking reduces cortisol by 15%. Dancing in your living room counts. Taking stairs counts. Pacing while you're on a phone call counts. You're not exercising for your body. You're exercising for your nervous system. And while we're talking about chemicals, there are two things you're probably consuming that are working against everything I've just told you. Way number 7. The hard truth about what you're drinking. You won't like this one. Caffeine triggers adrenaline release. If your nervous system is already sensitive, that cup of coffee might be the difference between manageable tension and full-blown panic. I'm not telling you to quit. I'm telling you to experiment. 2 weeks with reduced caffeine. Observe what changes. Alcohol is worse. It feels like it helps because it depresses your central nervous system. For an hour or two, you relax. Then your body metabolizes the alcohol and produces rebound anxiety, often more intense than what you started with. There's a term for this: hangxiety. If you've ever woken up at 4 in the morning after drinking, heart pounding with inexplicable dread, you've experienced it. I know. Nobody wants to hear this, but you didn't click on this video for comfortable lies. Let's talk about the thing that amplifies everything, the thing you do every single night. Way number 8. Fix your nights to fix your days. Anxiety destroys sleep. Poor sleep worsens anxiety. It's a cycle designed to break you. And most people never escape it because they're focused on the wrong end. Stop looking at screens an hour before bed. I know you've heard this. I know you ignore it. But the research isn't ambiguous. Blue light suppresses melatonin and signals your brain that it's still daytime. Keep your room cold, between 60 and 67 degrees. Your body temperature needs to drop to initiate sleep, and most bedrooms are too warm. And here's the one nobody mentions. Your bed is only for sleep and intimacy, not scrolling, not worrying, not watching shows. When your brain associates your bed with wakefulness, falling asleep becomes a fight. Create a wind-down ritual: reading, stretching, soft music. The ritual matters less than its consistency. You're training your brain that sleep is approaching now. But the next technique changed how I think about my own anxious thoughts. It might change everything for you too. Way number 9. You are not your thoughts. This comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, and it's quietly revolutionary. Anxious thoughts feel urgent, they feel true, they demand your attention and obedience. But what if they're just noise, words and images passing through your mind, no more meaningful than clouds crossing the sky? Try this. When an anxious thought arises, instead of arguing with it, simply add this prefix. I notice I'm having the thought that. So instead of I'm going to fail, it becomes I notice I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. That tiny shift creates psychological distance. You're observing the thought rather than drowning in it. You're watching the storm instead of being the storm. Here's another technique that sounds absurd until you try it. Repeat your worst fear out loud in a cartoon voice. A chipmunk, a robot, a valley girl. When you hear everything is falling apart in the voice of Kermit the Frog, something breaks. The thought loses its grip. Okay, it's time for number 10, the one I mentioned at the beginning. Way number 10, the nerve that changes everything. Your vagus nerve runs from your brainstem all the way to your gut. It's the main channel of your parasympathetic nervous system, the biological system that tells your body, you're safe, calm down, rest. You can stimulate it directly, instantly. Place your hand on your chest. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, hum. Feel the vibration in your chest and throat. Do this 3 times. That vibration activates the vagus nerve and sends a calming signal cascading through your entire body. Your heart rate drops. Your blood pressure decreases. The grip of panic loosens. Alternatively, gargle water vigorously for 30 seconds. The muscles in the back of your throat connect directly to the vagus nerve. Activate them, and you activate calm. A trauma therapist told me she's watched people mid-panic attack use this technique and come back to baseline in under 2 minutes. Not hours of meditation, not medication, 90 seconds of humming. That woman I mentioned at the beginning, the one who couldn't leave her apartment, she started with the physiological sigh, then she added worry time, then cold showers. 3 months later, she flew across the country alone. Anxiety is not a life sentence, it's a pattern. And patterns can be broken, one small technique at a time. Pick one thing from this video, just one. Practice it for 7 days, then come back and tell me what shifted. You are not broken. You never were.